Hello everybody, Ben Rogers here of the Raptors Digest, here to recap the Raptors' 108-100 loss to the New York Knicks. We're here with Ryker Richard. Hey Ryker.
Hey Ben, how you holding up emotionally?
Yo, I feel out of breath, honestly.
yeah, we're both trying to hold back the tears here, honestly.
Yeah, I don't know, that was a tough game to see. I don't know, up 11 going into the second half, or had an 11-point lead at some point in the second quarter. To the big story in this one, obviously, is the 28-0 run in the third quarter that the Knicks went on.
Well, you know what? The statistic actually is that was the biggest or the highest scoring margin that the Knicks have scored against a team since shot clocks have been introduced to the league. Now, isn't that something? I mean, that's not really a positive.
Yeah,
it's not a positive fact for the Raptors, but I mean, it is interesting.
Yeah,
and there were some positive takeaways. So how about we start in the first half where things weren't so doom and gloom?
Well, the first half was great. Excited. It looked like the Raptors they're toying with the Knicks. Honestly, it was just Tim Hardaway hitting ridiculous shots that kept him in the game.
What were your thoughts on Norman Powell first game back? Bit of a hot start. What did you like seeing from him?
Norm looked great. He didn't seem affected at all by the hip. He got up there. They called it a travel, but he had a really nice dunk in the first half. That didn't
that
count,
was
obviously.
cheese. That was cheese.
Yeah.
And then we seen Enes Kanter that had 3 blatant steps. I mean, he skipped across half the court, and they didn't wave that off. So I mean, there's a little bit of bias there in the refereeing, but that's what happens when you're the away team, I suppose.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, but to go back just to talk about the first half, the ball movement looked really great early on. They were swinging the ball, kicking it out, hitting threes, getting open shots.
Would that be a culture shift? No, let's not even talk about culture shift. We need to look at the game as a whole. But who do you think was the catalyst for the ball movement that we've seen in the first half? Do you think it was sort of in part to the entire team, or do you think that Lowry was distributing it well? Do you think that they fed off of Norman Powell's hot start? Like, what was the reason for the good ball movement?
Well, when the Raptors play well, they drive into the paint, they kick it out, and then they swing the ball open for open shooters. That's what happens. Or they drive in, they get an open lane, and they shoot. Right? So they get that mix of like a drive and kick game. That's when the Raptors offense looks at its best. And that's what it's looked like over the past 3 to 4 games that we've won, and the first half of this one, of course.
Mm-hmm.
So that's kind of what Casey's offense wants to be: a nice driving kick, swing the ball around, and get open threes, right? Or obviously take the layup if you can get it.
Of course.
But that the Raptors went away from that in the second half.
I mean, that's true. I think that to some extent they were the biggest issue was that the ball movement slowed down in the second half. They were they ended up sort of faltering with some weak screens. Or I mean, we'll talk about the Knicks defense. They definitely tightened the defense.
Picked up.
But it ended up getting down to 8 seconds in the shot clock, ISO ball, driving to the key, and then They threw like 4 turnovers in a row. That was sort of the story of the second half. I want to bring it back to the first half before we actually do move into it, though. I think it was, the statistic, Ibaka, he's shooting 51% of his total shots is from 3. And I'm not a huge proponent or believer that Ibaka is an efficient 3-point shooter. I also don't think that he needs to, given he is pretty effective when he gets into the paint. Especially when he's starting 0 for 8 for the game, not contributing on the defensive glass, really wasn't doing anything out there. I think that was kind of disheartening to see in the first half. But the one positive thing that I saw, and I mentioned this last quarter, they did the exact same play again. They bring DeMar up to the wing, set a down screen for him. He curls off Lowry to DeRozan.
We got that play in.
Sweet alley-oop. It was finessed. And I think they're going to keep on using it until it doesn't work. So that was nice to see.
Pick up on it.
Yeah,
all right. For sure.
Bring us into
to finish up the Ibaka point. Ibaka's a really good shooter from 3 and mid when he's in a groove.
True.
Right? He needs to get in that groove, though, so it's really tough to see him shooting above the break threes at the start of games because he rarely makes them.
Yeah.
Right? When Ibaka's flowing, then I'd like to see him shoot those shots, but Casey's got to kind of do what he does with Jonas. Maybe get him a few shots in the paint to start the game, a couple of those easy mid-range, and then maybe extend it out to the three-point line.
Yeah. Yep, that's true. I mean, he's kind of like a Lou Williams if you want to put it into that perspective. I mean, if
Streaky.
he's on,
Yeah.
if he's on, he's on. If he's
Yeah.
not, he's not. Take
Yeah.
us through what happened in the most disastrous third quarter that I've ever witnessed in my life. What did you see? What went wrong?
Well, the New York Knicks picked up their defense a lot. But they started pressuring our players and running some traps and all that. And it's kind of similar to what the Raptors seen in the playoffs, right?
Mhm.
Just that constant ball pressure on our smaller ball handlers, right? And usually teams have done that throughout the year, but we'd swing the ball over the defense and then do what we've been doing, getting into the paint and go against a defense that's almost sporadic. But we kind of just tried to dribble through it a lot, and well, obviously the results weren't very good.
No.
But
Now, do you think? Okay, so we mentioned the Knicks defense, and I think that we've seen a lot of hustle from there. A hustle that we haven't seen in New York in the last 4 or 5 years. I think really.
Yep.
Perhaps attributed to Carmelo Anthony. I mean, players did look up to him as sort of the leader on the court, and I would argue that he didn't try very hard on defense. And
well,
now you
there's
have
also a lot of stuff going on with the Knicks organization.
That's true, but I
Yeah,
think
so-
that there's a positive light for the Knicks franchise and that it's turning around.
Yeah.
You have young players that are out there willing to throw themselves into the stands like Tim Hardaway did. You have players that are fun to watch like Porzingis. You have, Enes Kanter had an attitude that game. I think it was all positive. I think the fan base, I can really credit. It had a playoff atmosphere to it. It felt like
It's great. It's great to see the Garden energetic again. Like
That's true.
As much as I'd much
Just
rather
not when
see
they're playing the
Raptors
Raptors.
win.
Just not when
yeah,
they're playing the
exactly.
Raptors.
But it's really cool to see that fan base get going again.
But what do you think could have been done? Now, my opinion is that 2 minutes into the first half, or the second half, they seen that there was a problem. The offense was stagnant. The combination of Ibaka and Valanciunas just wasn't working on defense. I think they should have put in Siakam and Bebe right away. What do you think?
Yeah, even Siakam Bebe, Siakam Podol, right? So the Raptors offense, when I actually tweeted this out, when the other team goes on the run, they start to play that ISO ball. So they really need to start their offense through their defense. They need to trigger that, get energy going. So as you pointed out, Ibaka Jonas lineup, it can be really effective against some teams. Like we've seen them play very well against the Pelicans or other teams with two big men. But when a team has someone, even though Kristaps Porzingis didn't have the greatest game, a team where they can kind of space the floor, the front court just looks lethargic out there, of sorts. So it's tough to watch, and as we see in the fourth quarter when Casey put in Siakam and had one of Ibaka out there, but I found that Siakam, Norm, and Fred just gave the Raptors great energy in the fourth. And then that's how we got to combat these runs when other teams go on them right away before it goes out of hand.
Well, that's just it. I mean, I think that the fourth quarter had some positive aspects to it. I mean, we were bound to lose that game. We didn't deserve to win the game given how poor we played in the third. But I mean, I think in looking at it, I think Van Vliet's leadership coming out in the fourth quarter, Siakam's engine on defense, Norm on defense, Van Vliet on defense. And then Ibaka, deciding to come in from the 3-point line and hitting some mid-range jumpers. He warmed up a bit. I think that combination there really worked. Do you think that Casey needs to consider a readjustment of the starting lineup? Do you think that Valanciunas and Ibaka just don't mesh well together, or do you think that that's something that was kind of a one-game anomaly and that, moving forward, it's something that can be wrinkled out or ironed out?
Well, it's tough to say to switch a starting lineup. I know everyone's has their own version of what the possible starting lineup could be, but it all depends on the matchups. And I don't mind starting Jonas and Ibaka. It's just making those in-game adjustments fast enough.
True.
Right? So being able to get guys like Siakam in early if the front court looks slow, or if we need some offense, get CJ Miles in at the front court quicker. Just make those adjustments per team, because we have such a deep team. We are capable of making these adjustments where other teams are just stuck with running their certain players, right?
Yep.
So,
I think this year more than ever we have a deep team, and we definitely need to use the bench when it's necessary in this game.
take advantage of it.
It was evidently necessary. All right, we're playing the Pacers next. Hopefully they can turn it around. We'll swing it over to our segments.
One last thing on the Knicks though.
Yep.
Tim Hardaway Jr. was phenomenal.
Yeah. Is he consistent though? Is he a consistent player, or did he have a night?
He's been very good for the Knicks, but obviously he isn't putting in 38 points, 7 assists, and 6 rebounds per game. But I don't know. He drills his open shots. I don't know. I guess everyone in the league made fun of that contract he got this summer, but it's really looking like it's gonna pay off for the Knicks.
I mean, he wasn't just drilling open shots. He was hitting some circus shots out there too. There was some well contested defense. That's true.
This game he was just ridiculous.
Yeah, the Knicks. I mean, it looks positive for the Knicks. All right, we have some segments to finish off this episode. You have one to pitch at me first. I'll send one back to you.
Yeah. So as we did last podcast, we're gonna have the play of the day. So what was your play of the day, Riker?
Play of the day. Finessed, mentioned at the beginning of the podcast. That little up screen where DeMar rolls off, Lowry sees it, finish off. This time he finessed it with a little behind the back dunk. He did
reverse
180. Yeah. So that was pretty nice.
That's always a great play.
It was pretty smooth. Nothing to get too crazy about though. Something to get crazy about. We're introducing a new segment. I love it.
New segment. The Damari Carroll Golden Star of the game. For the Raptors.
No, specifically for the the poorest performance of the game.
For the poorest performance of the game. Because if you Raptors fans watched any bit of the last couple seasons, Damari Carroll was rough to watch. So he's getting this award named after him. And this dubious award, and tonight it's the first ever Damari Carroll Golden Star Award.
Drum roll.
It's not going to just one player. It's going to the Toronto Raptors' whole entire roster during the third quarter.
And they deserve it.
So
they really do.
Yeah, I don't know. They made it. The other 3 quarters were pretty solid, but that was, as you said, was record-settingly bad.
Once again, holding back the tears. We'll finish off with the moments of the night. The runner-up, almost a close call, was Porzingis' closeout on DeRozan, where he extended those long fingers right into his eye. Completely unnecessary, but you know what? Maybe it happens. I don't know. But the number one, moment was Matty D giving Norman Powell the nickname Norman, call me Shooter Powell. That's the worst nickname I've ever heard.
Yo, Matt Devlin is known for throwing out some pretty sketchy nicknames.
Oh gosh. That's one of the worst. You know what? He redeemed himself. He threw out Van Vliet, calling him Steady Freddy. I believe I've heard that before, but you know what? That's not too bad. But you know what, Matty D, you got to come up with something better than Norm. Call me Shooter Powell.
I love it.
All right, that's it for me.
Yeah. Just shout out to the Raptors broadcast team. We got a very entertaining broadcast booth.
For sure.
Yeah. So that's it for our post-game podcast for the Raptors' tough loss. Come back, hopefully rally against Indiana, who are also playing pretty well this season. Well, thanks, Riker.
Thank you, Ben.